Good morning, my honey. Today, I am going to share a philosophical idea with you. Have you ever heard the name of Immanuel Kant? He is the great German philosopher in our history. And I can say that approach of philosophy has been drastically changed before him and after him. I mean, he gave great impact on later status of philosophical approach. Namely, many later philosophers, thinkers, could be free from over 2000 years spell. Before him, it was quite common for philosopher to think about idea, or form, especially suggested by Plato. We call it as theory of ideas, theory of form, and, indeed, these are invisible, and, therefore, cannot feel its existence by our nerve system. Through these unknown, invisible things, Kant called it as thing in itself. Ancient philosophers were spending their time and energy a lot. For example, philosopher sometimes thinks about next world after our death. Actually, it is not only philosophers, but we also have experience to think about what is next world sometime. Kant just criticized it as meaningless to think about. His logic: we are obtaining information through our nerve system, which practically we can recognize. And upon this information, we recognize nature, feature, characteristic of it. Quick example. When I visited my friend's home, when I was college student, my friend asked me to sit down on his bed. However, my nose gave me emergency alert, and I paid close eyes on the bed. Then, I found fresh poop on the bed. Because he kept kitty inside of his house, and just by the chance, this kitty prepared gift for me. What I want to say, I obtained information through my nerve system. And, upon information of this thing, I analyzed, what is this? Unfortunately for human, we do not equip any nerve system, which we can recognize invisible things. Kant defined that it is meaningless to think about such invisible things. Kant did not say, we have, or we don't have, be there, or not be there. He just simply said, because we cannot identify it, meaningless to think about it. It was great epoch-making for philosophical world. Over 2000 years, human was living in huge and mysterious invisible world. And Kant draw clear segment, build up boundary inside of this world, and suggested us to live in that real world, where we can identify things through our nerve system only. Twice, he did not say, be there, or not be there. Just he said, we don't have property to recognize this hyperdimension. Indeed, it is true that once our nerve system starts to send wrong information on our brain, this person is going to live in another world. For example, once I saw poop on the bed, I can think a lot. It is danger, why here? Because of pet. At least, not to touch. Our brain fully work on it, am I correct? But, if my eyes did something wrong, and let me recognize it as lovely puff. And also, my nose did not work on well, and let me feel it quite yummy smell. I may stay in another awful world at that moment. Especially for scientific study, Kant highly suggested to remove this kind of invisible things. Also, Kant mentioned that the reason why people like to talk about these kinds of hyperdimension, because our reason goes out of our control. Even we are not able to see wrongly, we are believing we can see and overtaken our boundary to go to another world. Therefore, Kant was quite doubtful about our capability for rational recognition, and strongly deny intuition of human. Afterwards, he added one more concept on our thinking territory. First, we may have large and invisible territory, which we do not need to touch. And, inside of this, we have another territory, which we can recognize by our sentience. Then, moreover, inside of this sentience, we have one more territory. This is consciousness. In short, it is some sort of guideline for smooth running of our human society. For example, you saw a poop on the playground of your school. As a sentience, no matter how many of people there, all of us recognize it as poop. However, how they consider to do, so many person, so many mind. I mean, we may have different reaction by different persons. Of course, most of us shall behave rational and reasonable. But we cannot deny, some of them may think different idea with majority. If someone consider to pick up it and throw to their neighbor, it creates small panic, definitely. If almost all people there thought to throw poop to their neighbors, it must produce massive disaster, absolutely. So, Kant said that we have to confirm some sort of guideline. Which action won't affect smooth running of our human society. For example, everybody know that the war is terrible. But why we are not able to eliminate the war from our history book? Because somebody has different consciousness from majority of us. Therefore, Kant defined the probability of philosophy in the territory where we can recognize as real and practical meanings. Not on the area where we can't recognize, we can't touch, we can't feel. Otherwise, we cannot settle practical problem of our world, such as no one is going to help us to remove the war from our history. By the way, what Kant has done was open the door for existing philosophers. And something like pull them from the world of imagination, next world. But now, we are going to be our new spiritual world. Internet, Nintendo, VR, these are actually not practical real world. I do not deny these, or even sometime, I, by myself enjoy it to release stress. However, we have to distinguish, it is actually different world, and our visible real life is there, anytime, whatever, although it is not. So, maybe it is good to touch Kant philosophy to know territory marking. Up to which level we can enjoy VR life in our real world, and eventually we have to back to our real life after enjoy not real life.
As the journey continues.